In these notes, I'm going to talk about two things. One is how to find trig ratios when you know the angle measure. And the second is how to find missing sides using trig ratios when you know the angle measure. So let's start with how to find trig ratios when you know the angle measure. Okay, so for this one, you need a calculator. So you need a calculator. So the one I'm going to be using is Desmos, which is a web-based calculator. It's desmos.com. So if you go to that website and you look at it, on the first page, it's going to have a button for scientific. So we're going to go to desmos.com and then click on the button called scientific. That's going to bring up a calculator, and if you look on it, you can see the three buttons for the three trig ratios that we learned the other day. We have sine, sin, we have cosine, cos, and we have tangent, tan. And what you do is you press one of those buttons, you type in the angle measure, and press the enter key, and it'll give you the trig ratio. There is one catch though, and this is very important, especially if you're using your own calculator. Okay, so I'm going to put a little star here because it's important. There are two different ways of measuring angles. So two ways to measure angles. There's what's called radians, which you're probably not used to, and degrees, which is what you're more likely to be used to. The one we're going to be using is degrees. So if you're using Desmos, there's a little slider you can go back and forth. If you click on it, it'll do DEG for degrees and RAD for radians. You want to make sure that DEG shows. If you're using your own calculator, it'll probably be on the screen somewhere. It'll either say DEG or RAD, and you need to change it in the settings so it says degrees. Now, how do you know you're in degrees mode? Do a test. So we're going to test it. So we're going to test. Go ahead and put in tangent of 25, and so we'll do tangent of 25, and if you get 0.4663 and it keeps going on and on, that is right. So we'll get a little happy face. So you're in degrees mode. If you get, when you put in tangent of 25, if you get this, negative 0.1335, you are in radians mode, and you will get the wrong answer if you use it on the test. Okay, let's do an example. For example 1, we're going to find the sine of 59 degrees to the nearest 10 thousandths. So I'm going to go on my calculator, I'm going to type in sine, which is sin. I'm going to do 59 for 59 degrees. That's going to give me, let's see, we'll do sine of 59. And I'm going to get 0.857 1, 6, 7, 3, 0, and it keeps going. Okay, so which of those is to the 10,000th place? So the number right after the decimal, that's the tenths. Then we have the hundredths. We have the thousandths. And so that fourth number after the decimal, that's the one we're rounding to. That's the 10,000th place. Okay, so we look at the number after it, and if it is less than 5, it's going to stay the same. If it's more than 5, we're going to round up 1. It's a 6, so we're going to change the 1 to a 2. And we're going to get the sine of 59 degrees is equal to 0.8572, rounded to the nearest 10,000ths. Okay, let's do another example. For this one, we're going to do a cosine of 70 degrees. So cosine of 70, I'm going to type that into the calculator, and I will get 0.342. So cosine of 70 degrees equal to 0.342. And I need to get the next two numbers so I can round to the nearest 10,000ths. Remember, you need at least 5. So 0.34202. I'm aiming at that fourth number past the decimal. I look at the fifth number, and it's a 2. It's less than 5, so that 0 is going to stay a 0. So the cosine of 70 degrees is equal to 0.342 and 0. You do want to write it because we're rounding to it. Okay, on part B, we're trying to find missing sides using trigonometry. So here's the problem. I have a triangle. I know one side of it is 16. I know an angle is 65. I know it's a right triangle. And I'm looking for this side. So how do I do it? Well, we're going to use our old friend, the SOHCAHTOA, to figure it out. Because first we have to figure out which of these are we going to use, the sine, the cosine, or the tangent. And what I want to do even before I do that, and first I'm going to move this kind of out of the way. Let's move it up here. So we have SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and then TOA, tangent, is opposite over adjacent. Alright, so I write that down so I can remember it, because we're going to need to figure out which one of these three, sine, cosine, or tangent, we're going to use. So what I'm going to do next is I need to label the sides of the triangle in regards to the 65 degrees. Which one's the hypotenuse, which one's the opposite, which one's the adjacent. So I know that the 16 is the hypotenuse. I know that the opposite side is the blank side. I know that the x is on the adjacent side. That's going to tell me which one of the three trig ratios we're going to use. And what you do is you look at what you have. We have the 16, so we have the h. And you look at what you're looking for. We're looking for the x, which is the a. So we have the h and the a. So we have h and a. The o we don't care about. So we can just cross that out. We don't even care about it. So we have the h and the a. We're going to look up here and see which one of our three has an h and an a. And that would be ka. So cosine adjacent over hypotenuse. So we're going to use cosine. So we are going to use cosine. And what we're going to do is we're going to do cosine of 65 degrees, just like we learned in the previous part, is equal to, and cosine is adjacent or hypotenuse. The x is the adjacent, so the x goes on top, and the hypotenuse is 16. So the cosine of 65 degrees is equal to x over 16. And then we just solve for x. So first thing I want to do is cosine of 65 on my calculator. You have to use a calculator for this or it's not going to be very easy. So I'm going to cosine 65 and I get 0.42261. So let's write this down. Cosine of 65 equals 0.422, and I'm going to round it at 6, like that. Okay, then we'll substitute this in for that, and we'll get 0.4226 equals x over 16, and we'll solve for x. X is in the numerator, so that means I'm going to multiply by the denominator, get rid of the 16. So we're going to do x is equal to 0.4226 times 16. And the way I do it is I'll just leave it in the calculator because it's much more accurate than 0.4226. And I'm just going to press times for the answer, and I'm going to do 16. And if you're doing it in Desmos, make sure you're outside the parentheses when you press times. We're going to do times and then 16, and I will get 6.76 for an answer, and I'm around it to the nearest tenth, so we'll get 6.8. So the missing side is 6.8. Okay, let's try another one. On this one I have an angle of 31 degrees, a missing side of x, and a side of 19. So I'm going to write down SOHCAHTOA again so I can figure out which one of my three trig ratios I want to use. And then I'm going to identify the sides. So here's the right angle. Remember, it points at the hypotenuse, or it's opposite the hypotenuse. So this is the hypotenuse, the 19. And then if I go opposite the 31, it's going to be the x. So this is the opposite side. And we don't really care about the other side because it's blank. So we have the hypotenuse and the opposite. Okay, so it is not cosine because that's AH. It is not tangent, is it OA? It is in fact sine, which is OH. So we're going to do sine. So we're going to do sine of 31 degrees equals, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so x over 19. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in my calculator sine of 31 equals 0.515. So I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to leave it in my calculator because I'm going to multiply in a minute. So all I have to do is press times. So 0.515, and then we're going to multiply by 19 because the 19 is in the denominator. So we're going to do times 19, and that's going to equal x. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of the parentheses on Desmos if you're using Desmos. If you're just using a regular handheld calculator, you can just press times. Alright, then I'm going to press times. And I'm going to do 9 times 19, and I will get 9.785, and I'm just going to round that to 9.79.